Thank you, and bless your heart. I'm Nancy Mitchell from the University of Nebraska. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Education Programs, and I'm here today with my colleague and friend, Patty Solers, who is a neuroscientist, but more importantly, in terms of what we are talking about today, she is a member of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee and also a strong advocate for faculty in the process of our review. For those of us who are involved in general education, and by all accounts, it's about 900 of us in here, we can learn something from about the importance of planning, I think, from George Lucas, who was the creator of Star Wars. So shortly after the movie was released in December, I read a review with Mark Hamill, who was the actor who created Luke Skywalker. The interesting thing I thought from that was that Hamill said that when he was acting in the original movie, George Lucas told him then, how many ever years ago that was, that he would be needed again as an actor when he was in his 60s. And the latest Force Awakens proved that. He showed up when he was in his 60s. So the lesson, I think, from George Lucas is that we need to be thinking about sequels. And he knew what the storyline was going to be, even over that many years. So my thought is, what is our sequel in terms of telling our story for general education reform? And what is the sequel to what it is that we're doing? To talk a little bit about why I think this is important, if we don't think about this, I think we may be doomed to reinventing gen ed about every 10 years, and that would not be a good thing, I don't think. So what Patty and I argue is that periodic review of our whole program is something that is a necessary piece. So what can we learn institutionally about our programs, and also what can we learn from the people who were involved with general education, who were on the ground doing it, the advisors and the students and the faculty members, that we can use to improve it so that we don't have to revise it every 10 years. To give you a little bit of context about Nebraska, we have a general education program that was created with 10 learning outcomes. It was implemented in 2009. The goals for the program were to be more transparent. They were to help students understand what it was they were trying to learn, more transferable. We had a mess with courses that didn't even transfer within our 8 different colleges, let alone from other institutions. And so a lot of the processes that we developed were in response to things we didn't like about our complicated, antiquated, original gen ed program that had like 2,300 courses, and nobody could remember why they were even teaching what they were teaching and what was supposed to be in those courses. So we, as part of the process in the new one, built in evaluation for the first 4 years on a rotating, staggered basis of the 10 different outcomes. So we went through those 4 years, and the 5th year was devoted to looking at the program as a whole. So what we are here to talk about is how we are planning. We don't have anything to look at, did we, Patty? And so how did we come up with what it was that we thought was important? So actually, we sat down with some of the Faculty Senate people and developed some questions that we wanted answers to. So it's sort of been a 2-part piece. What is the institutional data? What is it that we could learn from our previous efforts that we could develop then and respond to that as we try to improve it? And then the second part of it is how we can then go ahead and improve what we've got. So what a couple of the types of questions of things that we were investigating. What kind of courses are students using? What are they not using? How many students are coming in with their general education transferring in from other institutions? And if they are doing that, then what kind of adjustments do we need to make at our institution for that? How can we capture the perspectives of students and advisors? Is general education having an impact in terms of time to degree? So we looked at all of those things as much as we could from existing institutional data. And then we also had a second piece of this where we involved the faculty to develop interest groups about the outcomes, to look at the language of the outcomes. Do we need to revise that? Would they help us make assessment more meaningful for faculty if we could then give them rubrics? So we have faculty develop rubrics that were being developed that have been finished. But all of these things bring up lots of questions like, well, then who gets to decide? If you make a change, who's the final decision maker? And so what we want to do with the sessions that we're doing is talk about some of the issues that arose as we were planning our process, things that you may have answers for us for, and generate a robust discussion that we can share with one another. So once we talk about the issues, we'll also talk about some of the changes that we have made to our programs. And I want to close by saying that we are thinking of this year of programmatic assessment as a snapshot, a still frame in the moving picture that is our general education. And if you are thinking about the same types of issues, how to make it sustainable, how to improve your programs, please join Patty and me in what I will call our collaboratorium in whatever room we're meeting. I think it's still Studio 4 and 5 downstairs afterwards, so we can discuss some of the issues that have arisen at our campus and also things that are important to you, no matter what your size, and see if we can consider together how we can continue improving student learning. We're optimistic that together we can do it. Thank you. And
I'm going to try and handle two computers here at one time. This is Friday. Clearly, this is intrinsic assessment, extrinsic gains, how inclusive general education can drive college-wide inclusive excellence, which my partners and I have decided is maybe the worst presentation title we could possibly have created. And we want you to know we created it especially for you. My name is Dr. Seth Freshy. I'm a professor in the Department of English at Cabrini College. And in the interest of truth and advertising, I'm going to run through a very brief 5 to 7 minute description of our work at Cabrini, a small Catholic liberal arts college on the Philadelphia Main Line. And hopefully my doing so will set the stage for both the workshop and affinity sessions our team will conduct later in the morning. Those sessions will focus on assessment, faculty development, and inclusivity. And the Cabrini faculty presenters, Drs. Michelle Filling-Brown, Dr. Laura Groves, and Darrell Mace will highlight the linkages between them, linkages that we really regard as central to the establishment of a sustainable general education program that promotes inclusive excellence, that is both inclusive education and more broadly, an inclusive campus culture and residential life. So some brief history is in order, given that the process of creating these linkages between assessment, faculty development, and inclusivity began almost a decade ago with the creation of a new general education program at Cabrini, our Justice Matters core curriculum. That curricular reform was the subject of 3 previous AAC&U presentations in Minneapolis, Portland, and Kansas City last year, each with their own area of emphasis. But what's really relevant here today is the fact that out of that process, the process for creating consensus around change, updating and refining SLOs and so forth, we were able to create and really needed to create opportunities for curriculum assessment and specifically opportunities that have not only helped us to address concerns about student academic performance, but have furthermore informed our thinking about inclusivity and the institutional reforms required to meet the needs of a really rapidly changing student demographic at our college. Importantly, the assessment data we've collected not only informs curricular change, it underwrites important campus-wide conversations about academic and social support services, the first-year experience, the special needs student, remediation, and the mercurial recruitment and retention trends that we all must respond to in this day and age. So, as Laura is talking about assessment, it will be important to note the extent to which our Gen Ed assessment, and specifically the instruments and data collection protocol associated with it, have helped to define both faculty development and inclusivity goals for the college. Laura will illustrate the transparency of this process by explaining how the range and reach of our assessment work is drawn through our governance structure, facilitating really important conversations between our core assessment, faculty development, and inclusivity initiatives and goals. Michelle will then address our faculty development programming, the faculty retreats and so forth we've conducted. And as we look at our professional development programs, here too, while our focus grows out of concerns regarding student performance, she'll explain how our assessment has pointed us to specific forms of faculty development, programming that has really been designed to grow faculty capacity that will meet the learning needs of the increasingly diverse cohort of students we teach. That faculty capacity has been an ongoing concern for myself and Daryl and other members of our College Inclusivity Council, which Daryl shares. And Daryl will have more to say about that, particularly as it relates to how curriculum assessment and faculty development inform campus-wide assessments and the shared development programs we've created for both faculty and staff. So to recap quickly, we'll take a look at our general education program and our assessment of it, including discussion of the signature assignments we use to generate data. We'll talk about transparency and the assessment feedback loop we've created, a feedback loop we've drawn through our shared governance process and CRY, C-R-Y, or comprehensive review year. I like that too. And we'll discuss our rather comprehensive program of professional development for faculty and staff and explain how that work has both advanced and shaped a shared vision for inclusive excellence at Cabrini College. We'll begin with a look at assessment and encourage schools to attend in teams rather than splitting the difference. Our hope is to create an opening for you in groups to accomplish something valuable that will help to begin this work, or alternatively, refine what you are doing based on the Cabrini example. We'll have handouts, we'll pose specific questions for the affinity session that will encourage important crosstalk between groups about Gen Ed assessment and, of course, dynamically evolving ideas about inclusivity on college and university campuses today. So thanks, and we hope we'll see you later. I think it's Studio 6.
Wait, Matt?
Hey.
What are you doing here? How'd you get roped into assessment?
Oh, Dr. Griffin asked me to participate, and I said sure. Plus, I get to see New Orleans. What about you?
I filled out one of those assessment surveys. Thought I was gonna get a $10 Amazon gift card, but instead I got this trip to New Orleans, so.
My name is Matthew Finley. I'm a senior literature and art history major at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California. I was invited to become a part of our general education assessment team my junior year, and since then, I've offered a student perspective on many aspects of the assessment process, and my life will never be the same.
I'm Kaylee Rogers, a senior theater major at Pepperdine, and while I have filled out my share of surveys, I've actually been involved in assessment for about a year now. I began working on a couple of end-of-year reports for the Fine Arts Department, GE, and the Fine Arts Division last May, and this year I was invited to serve as a student member of a college-wide assessment committee.
So to recap what we've said thus far, we're students. We're not professors or associate deans or provosts, but students. And not just any students, but students who are partnering with professors and provosts and deans to do assessment at Pepperdine University. We're excited to be here today to lead a workshop on involving students at every level of the assessment process.
We're joined today by Dr. Bradley Griffin, an associate professor of theater at Pepperdine. Dr. Griffin chairs the General Education Assessment Committee, known as the GE Learning Innovators Team, or GELI, and he serves on the university-wide Advancement of Student Learning Council.
Our workshop is entitled Making Assessment Authentic, Student Involvement at Every Level. When we were putting together this session proposal, Dr. Griffin noted that it's almost impossible for any college or university to come through the re-accreditation process without being advised, or in some cases warned, to involve more students in assessment. While there are many elements of the assessment landscape that are changing, it seems that faculty and administrators remain reluctant to put the assessment process too firmly in the hands of students. In our workshop, we want to hear from you about the fears or hesitation that you or your colleagues have about bringing students into the assessment process.
At Pepperdine, we've received our share of encouragement from our accrediting body, the WSCUC, or WASC, to involve more students in assessment. So I hope that our presence here and the information that we have to share with you during our workshop is proof that student involvement in assessment is not only possible, but also beneficial.
By sharing in greater detail the story of our own involvement in assessment at Pepperdine, and by giving participants time to discuss faculty anxieties related to student involvement, we hope to provide a narrative of successful student collaboration that you can share with your colleagues at your home institutions.
But we want our workshop to be more than just sharing stories. We want you to leave with practical approaches to student involvement that you can implement when you get back to campus. So to that end, we'll model the process of achieving inter-rater reliability when working on assessment teams comprised of both faculty and students.
Because Dr. Griffin, Kaylee, and I have all been involved in this process, we'll conclude our workshop with a discussion about best practices for student involvement, from different ways for students to participate in multimodal methodologies, all the way to closing the loop.
Now, I would be lying if I said that every student at Pepperdine was involved in assessment. There are still many of my peers that don't even know what assessment is. So on a personal level, being involved in assessment for the past year has given me a broader understanding of the purpose behind the curriculum, and that understanding has helped me to be even more successful in my coursework over the last 2 semesters.
For faculty, having students involved in assessment provides an instant window into the learning process. We're able to respond to questions about which strategies and classroom assessment techniques are successful and why. We believe there are benefits to both parties when faculty and students work together in the assessment process.
So we'd like to thank you, and we look forward to your participation in our session.
Okay, well, first of all, I have to thank Dr. Griffin for putting me in the unenviable position of having to follow not just students who are fabulous, but theater majors. So, I'll just start off by saying that I was a student once, too, and very close to theater, I was a computer science major, so this should be great. I want to start off by sharing kind of 5 fun facts about assessment. You guys can see how I do in the theater department. Fun fact number 1, developing an assessment plan is easy, right? That's the relative easy part, right? You can go Google it, Google assessment plan, you can find in other institutions, or you can do what we did at Guttman, which was send a team to the Gen Ed and Assessment Institute, and 5 days later, you have this nice little plan that you can take back to your institution. Fun fact number 2, actually doing assessment and implementing that plan is hard, right? Fact number 3, doing integrative assessment that connects Gen Ed to the majors, curricular and co-curricular areas of the college, that's even harder. Fact number 4, doing integrative assessment that connects all those pieces and creates meaningful systemic institutional change and improvement that focuses on student learning, that's even more challenging. That's kind of why we're all here this morning. The 5th fact, there is no silver bullet for this. So if you thought I was going to stand up here and tell you exactly what you have to do to make this work in one easy step, one fun fact, there isn't a silver bullet. Wow, now that I've brought the whole room down with my fun facts, here's the good news. It is doable. It is doable to do integrative assessment in a way that promotes meaningful, sustainable, systemic change on a campus that focuses on student learning. And we've kind of developed a framework that kind of talks about the different pieces. And we've done it, and we've seen it not just in my own campus at Guttman and Brett's campus at LaGuardia Community College, but in our work with campuses across the country. And different types of campuses. Community colleges, small liberal arts colleges, large public universities, and Research One institutions. And what we've done is kind of looked across what they're doing and what's working on their campuses, because there's examples, I'm sure, in this room of great things that are working. And we've kind of seen what's been working and kind of distilled it down into this integrative assessment framework that we're going to talk about during our session. And I'm going to let Brett walk through it right now. I am going to let him have the microphone for a few minutes of this. And I just want to point out, if you can't see, because I know you folks down the left, we do see you, or my left, your right. It is on the handout that's on your table, so I would encourage you to refer to that.
Great. Thanks, Laura. I think that the framework that we are going to work with in our session is similar in some ways to what we've already heard from a number of the panelists, that some of the kinds of things that we're highlighting are in common in other places, and that makes sense. Because this is, as Laura said, this is derived from what we've seen at a range of campuses, including our own. So I want to highlight the core piece of this, the 3 columns across the middle of the framework here, which we might talk about as high-impact assessment practices that are particularly important if we want to be doing integrative assessment and we want to be looking for institutional change. So those 3, quickly, we'll talk about them more. But first is broad engagement, thinking about ways in which we connect with students, faculty, staff, Gen Ed, the majors, student affairs, academic experiences, co-curricular experiences, people from across the campus, and engage them in identifying, defining, or rethinking, as Nancy was talking about, our student learning outcomes, so that it's not only a question that they have an understanding of them, but that they own those and that they reflect the complexity of the student learning experience. If we want to create more integrative learning experiences that address the whole student on our campuses, we need to function as integrative institutions that involve people from all directions in shaping our assessment processes. Second, the middle column, if we don't take those competencies and think about how they relate to our actual practice, they don't do us any good. That we need to be making the connection between assessment and the design of our learning experiences. Pat Hutchings has done fabulous work with the assignment design charrette process, which I think is really revelatory in its power and can be used both in classrooms and co-curricular settings. That helps us understand how the competencies that we identify and select shape our work and the work that we ask students to do. Finally, the third column. None of this makes any difference if we're not using the evidence that we generate to actually make change. That's in some way the biggest challenge. We know from the surveys that AAC&U has done, from the research, from our own experience, that making that turn to actually using evidence to make change that makes a difference in student learning is the biggest step, but it's the most valuable. It's absolutely crucial if we want assessment to be meaningful. I often say to my colleagues at my campus, assessment's not about assessment. Assessment's about learning. Assessment's about student learning, faculty learning, and institutional learning. So in our session, we'll talk about these three components, and we'll talk about some of the support structures that we have found to be particularly valuable in generating this, including portfolios, professional development, and a trio of design principles. So we'll be delighted to have you join us in that, to explore that, and to think about how it relates to your work on your campus and how you can move things forward. I think we're in good shape to wrap up now. Kate, you want to take it from here?
So, excuse me, you've received a taste of at least 4 of our sessions that will take you into some deep dives throughout the morning. I want to say that it was not purposeful that we put you in the morning for assessment first thing on a Friday, but as I started thinking about being in New Orleans, I just want to say it's too early to start doing anything in New Orleans. Stay for all the assessment sessions. Stay for the whole day. But I worry about your health and your mental well-being if you leave now and do something you might regret. Remember, there are people tweeting. There are people tweeting. So one more time, a round of applause for our plenary. And we appreciate their bravery in taking on this new format and in welcoming us into their models and showing us, where things work and where they don't. The students will be available for autograph signing. I've already checked with their professor. And as we do have a theater major here, you never know. It might be 20 years from now that you get to sell it on eBay to pay for your child's college education. As you look at your program, if these sessions are not where you are choosing to spend some of your time, you'll see we have some amazing sessions dedicated to both methodological work, theoretical frameworks, practical faculty development. I think you have a wealth of things to choose from. If you have any questions or concerns, you can come find me, Terry Rhodes, or any of the staff. And with that, I will leave you to make your decisions. Feel free to come and ask any questions that you want to now. Coffee and everything on your way out, and enjoy the greater elbow room that we have for you.